Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Lowland Greenhouse here at Carlton Carnivores. I've got another species spotlight for you guys here, and this is kind of a unique species of carnivorous plant because, one, it's pretty in demand because it's fairly easy to grow, but at the same time seems to be kind of difficult to find because the plants they can sometimes be touchy about getting fed enough to actually reproduce, and a lot of people kind of overlook this species until they actually find out how easy and pretty it is. This is a species of butterwort that is one of the few annuals in the genus, and it is one of the only annuals also that is native to Europe, and that is Pinguicula lusitanica. It is a truly minuscule plant overall, not quite as small as some of the small as some of the miniatures that can be found, the annuals in Mexico, but still pretty tiny. These guys are native to kind of the western coast of Europe and into actually northwestern Morocco as well. So along the Atlantic coastlines there, they reach from, again, Morocco, along the Iberian Peninsula, Spain, France, up along the western coast of England, around most of Ireland, and all the way up to the northern end of Scotland, actually. So they grow in a fairly warm Mediterranean environment all the way up into the cool temperate environments of the coastal British Isles. These species naturally live in very moist, acidic peat swamp areas, so they like the same kinds of soils that a lot of other carnivores do, so they're not as picky as like the Mexican butterworts are. They like peat moss and sphagnum, and they'll probably grow on just about any carnivore soil that you offer them. And they only grow to, as you can see, quite tiny. They only get to about, at maximum, maybe 2 inches across. And generally they won't even get that big. Usually around an inch or so is pretty average. They have these broad ovular leaves. They have a very distinct petiole at the bottom of the leaves, and then that ovular shape. Very distinctive rolled edges to the leaves as well. And in bright light, these guys will actually, butterworts overall are considered fairly green plants, pale greenish coloration, but these guys will also develop kind of a reddish blush right in the center of the plant, as well as sometimes that red will extend up onto the veins within the leaf as well. So these guys, because they are annuals, they grow very quickly and they need a lot of food to do well. So in cultivation, it's very important to feed them regularly with anything that you might have available. Like if you have a serious infestation of fungus gnats, put these guys next to there and they'll feed themselves. Don't expect them to control the fungus gnats because honestly their soil is also a perfect breeding ground for those gnats. But the plants will capture those. You can feed them dried house fly or fruit flies, crushed bloodworms, Max-C fertilizer or another suitable urea-free fertilizer. And once they reach full size, continue feeding, they will produce, as you can see, all these little stalks. They get up to about 4 inches tall or so. One stalk, one flower each, as is typical with butterworts. And these flowers, they are oh so tiny. I mean, this is less than 1/3 of an inch long. They are very delicately structured. They have 5 petals at the ends of this long tube, the corolla tube. Those petals have these little tiny indentations along the edges, and then the tube itself, the flower goes from white around those petals to, they have this lavender to kind of rosy purple coloration in the tube, and a little bit of that extends as well onto the tiny little nectar spur that they have as well. Now this flower, it's kind of hard for us to really get in there or anything, but luckily, unlike most butterworts, this is one you don't have to worry about pollinating. It actually pollinates itself. If you can get a toothpick in there and take pollen, cross it from one flower to another, great, and you can increase the health of the offspring perhaps, but in general, these guys self-pollinate just fine, and the seedlings that are produced from that grow up on their own just fine as well. As you can see, all these guys are starting to get ready to bloom, kind of all at the same time, because they were fed about a week ago fairly heavily, so they're taking advantage of that and about to produce all their little tiny flowers. Now those flowers will stay open for about 2 to 3 days, and then the actual bloom part will just kind of fall off. Tiny little seed pod will form that has a whole bunch of small brownish, blackish brown seeds inside, usually around 30 to 40 seeds per pod, sometimes up to twice that amount. And then again, those get sown on the soil. They would fall down on the soil in the wild, or in our case, we pick them off and you can spread them around and they'll just sprout up and produce the next generation. Now, in cultivation, again, it is a fairly easy species to grow as long as you obey that one rule: feed them a lot. So the soil should be a fairly wet, or at least moist to wet, peat-rich, acidic soil, so you can grow them on sphagnum, pure peat moss, peat and perlite, like I do for most of my carnivores. And then as soon as those seedlings sprout, you'll find they are extremely tiny, but if you can get small food particles onto those leaves, they'll grow much faster. Once they actually get up to size, you can drop individual fruit flies and such on there. It becomes much easier to feed. Once they reach size and they start flowering, it's important to continue to feed them at that time so that they are able to support those flowers and produce seeds for the next generation. I have found if you keep these guys fed, they will become short-lived perennials. I've had a couple of these for 2 or 3 years, actually. Some of these came from my other house, which I left 2 years ago, and I've just kind of continued in this pot since then. They can be repotted very gently if you clean the soil off the roots and plant them into a new soil. They won't die like some other annual species will when their roots are disturbed. They're a little more sturdy than that. But if you need to just completely restart a pot, like say there's some sort of mold or really pain in the butt moss that's growing in with them, you can just take those seeds and restart otherwise. But if you can keep them fed, again, the same group of plants can be around for a couple of years at least. In the wild, they are annuals, and of course if they're not fed heavily, once they bloom, you'll see them die back. But keep them fed and you can just keep getting that colony bigger and bigger and bigger. Now, these guys though, even in their relatively temperate areas where there's no frost but there's moisture that remains year-round, they still tend to be annuals because they'll flower and then die off and the next set of seeds comes in. If you're lucky enough, if you live in that region, to go look for them, certainly see if you can't find these tiny guys growing alongside some of the sundew species that also live up there, or possibly even the bigger true temperate butterworts like grandiflora or vulgaris, because they might be in the same such areas. These are a lot more likely to be coastal, while those may be inland highland plants, but you could find some areas where they might overlap. But that's about all that I have for this species, though. If you have questions, comments on that species, make sure to leave them in the video comments below. Otherwise, if you'd like to learn more about the species, the different plants that I grow, the animals that I work with and such, make sure to follow this channel, like, subscribe, turn on the black bell so you don't miss anything for any new videos that may be coming up. Additionally, you can also find more information at my website, carltoncarnivores.com, where the database and blog are found. A lot of information on different species is in there. I'm always posting photos, videos, and such on social media, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, at Carlton Carnivores. And if you'd like to help support the production of these videos and such, simply watching these videos all the way through really helps, honestly. But also you can support through, I sell a lot of plants on my website shop, and in a little bit here, as these guys go into mass bloom, I might even have lusitanica seeds available soon. But there's all sorts of other things that are already available in there, including another North American annual butterwort as well. You can also become a member at patreon.com/hcarlton. Members there get access to the monthly seed contest that I do, where I release things that you might not find yet on my website, or you might find them for simply a lot cheaper, the cost of membership there, instead of higher cost on the website. You can also donate at Ko-fi, or simply contact me if there's another method you'd like. But until next time, I'm Håkon Carlton, and this is Carlton Carnivores.